do they disagree with Aquinas? Uh, yes, but it depends what you are talking about.
Yeah.
If you're talking about whether righteousness is infused or imputed, yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about transubstantiation, yes. But what about goodness, the majority of
Yeah.
the Christian faith beyond that? I mean, to disagree with Aquinas on the Trinity would, I mean, that would put you outside of orthodoxy. And we
Exactly.
could say the same thing of Christology. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and here I'm talking about the essence of what he's saying. And beyond that, there's just a slew of ways in which Aquinas's theology and philosophy become pivotal. And it's not just him alone, but it does become pivotal because what he is saying about everything from the attributes and the existence of God to the beatific vision, from Christology and original sin to virtue and ethics. Well, in one sense, the reformers don't take issue with this.
No.
They're standing on a foundation, and it's not laid by merely Aquinas, though he gets our attention often because he's such a significant theologian.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so, maybe I should add something more here, because even on those doctrines where they do disagree with Aquinas, isn't it interesting that there's still nuance?
Mm-hmm.
So take original sin, grace, predestination, justification. They do not agree. They do not disagree with Aquinas on all that.
Mm-hmm.
They may disagree with him on, say, infusion versus imputation, or merit. Mm-hmm. But they actually think that Aquinas is far better than, say, a William of Ockham or a Gabriel Biel.
Yeah, among the options they have to read, they're going to read Aquinas.
Yeah, I mean, these later medieval scholastics, they're venturing into a type of semi-Pelagianism.
Yeah.
And so Aquinas, at the very least, is not nominalist or voluntarist. He has a very substantiated understanding of God's righteousness and justice, on the basis of which he understands, he has a very Augustinian affirmation of original sin.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable when you talk about grace, even his, it's not that there's no differences, but his articulation of election sounds very similar to Calvin.
Exactly. Yeah.
But most importantly, even when Protestants think, okay, Aquinas, you go really wrong here on say, introducing the place of works. Nevertheless, at the very least, Aquinas thinks grace is primary. He's not semi-Pelagian.
No.
And so this is, I think this is telling. I mean, you even have someone like John Owen, who comes much later, right? John Owen looks at Aquinas, and when John Owen is refuting Socinians, Molinists, Arminians, Arminians. So think of those three groups. He is utilizing the idea of pure actuality and connected to it, simplicity, immutability, God's eternity, and much more, which of course are very, Thomas has his fingerprints on those. He's using those to root the Reformed and the Puritans as well in a more orthodox understanding of God that he thinks that these other groups have departed from. And then when he turns to even soteriology, you think, okay, well, surely John Owen has left Aquinas behind at this point.
Yeah.
But here is what I would call a critical retrieval. And so does he criticize Aquinas when it comes to infused habits or infused righteousness? Yes. He says, no, Aquinas, you shouldn't have put this in justification. But then Owen says, well, but this category is actually very appropriate for sanctification. So what this may shock some people if they're not familiar with this conversation. I think what's happening here, and I know this is a bold statement, but both in philosophy and in theology, I would describe the Reformed tradition and its origin in the 16th and 17th centuries. So think here of even like Reformed scholastics.
Yeah.
I would describe them, they're not merely like cherry picking areas of agreement.
Not at all.
I think what they're doing is they are bringing along an Augustinian and even a Thomistic understanding of philosophy and theology. Mm-hmm. And where they do disagree, they think we are actually refining these points so that those commitments come to their true end.
Yeah.
And you have to look for it because sometimes it's subtle, but it's there. I mean, you look at Jerome Zonke's, or Zenke, depending on how you want to pronounce his name, his work on the doctrine of God. This seems to be what he's doing. Yep. So anyway, all that to say, I know I'm getting long-winded here. I have an entire chapter on this. Again, it could be a whole book.
Yeah.
David Van Drunen has edited a book that has about 20 Protestants in it, called Aquinas Among the Protestants.
Yep.
Also an excellent resource if listeners want to read further.
Totally.